Supermassive 2024 version by Image Comics. So this is a giant Massiverse one-shot special where we collect all the Massiverse superheroes. So we got Dead Lucky, Inferno Girl Red, the Radiance, Rogue Sun, all together, and this is dealing with the Radiant Black timeline situation. So for anyone who's not following Radiant Black, there's two separate timelines. One where Nathan is a Radiant Black, another one where Marshall is a Radiant Black, and things are not going so well for Marshall's timeline. Let's just say that he's kind of gone off the deep end. He's killed some of the Radiants, stolen their powers, and kind of destroying the world. And so we have to do a superhero team up to fix that situation. And we start off where the last Radiant Black episode ended, where Radiant Pink has dropped off Shift in Africa. And now she opens up a portal, comes back to bring him back because she needs him to talk to Wendell, Radiant Yellow. Can I just say right here, I hate Shift. I hate this guy so much. I don't care for him as a character. And this isn't like I hate him because he's a villain kind of situation. This isn't like villain heat. This is go away heat. For anyone who's familiar with wrestling, this is X-Pac heat. This is, I don't want to see you because you're not an interesting character. Please stop appearing in these issues kind of heat that I have for this guy. I don't like anything that he's been in. I don't care for him as a character. They're trying to make him like the Green Ranger, only he just isn't as interesting as the Green Ranger was. But yeah, basically he goes to talk to Wendell, and Wendell is like, there's a situation. Inferno Girl Red has been kidnapped and she's held hostage in Marshall's timeline. And so I'm going to need you to gather a group of superheroes. We're going to send you to that timeline and you got to save her. The fate of the world depends on it. And so he gathers up his crew. And his crew is going to be Radiant Red, Rogue Sun, Dead Lucky, and then eventually we'll get to Inferno Girl Red. So, yeah, those are the only group that go with him. So we have him like gathering all his group. And then eventually they go into Marshall's timeline where they go and fight against the Catalyst. So they just immediately rush in. The one thing that Marshall wasn't able to do, they're able to do it. They just bum rush this spaceship and they just start destroying all the robots. And they break their way in to go find Cassia, aka Inferno Girl Red. So I'm going to be skipping a lot of action scenes. There's a lot of action panels in here. Here's what I'll say about it. The action scenes aren't that bad when you can really make out what is going on. But there are times where the artwork and the coloring really is detrimental to showcasing what's going on. Like, it's just hard to follow these characters, especially like when you have like the coloring kind of blur some of the characters and they all look the same. You can really tell them apart by their coloring, but when things are kind of blurry and happening at very fast pace, it's hard to make out what's happening. I don't know, maybe it's just a me issue, but there are times where like I had to really slow down to figure out, okay, here's how the action scene is playing out, because it's just the artwork doesn't help it. But yeah, we have them taking out robots and saving Cassia. And of course, her first move when waking up is doing Inferno Ignites and attacking Dylan for some reason. Yeah, Dylan just kind of comes across as a butt of jokes here, where people just kind of, he's like the punching bag for some unexplained reason why we got to do that for our dude. But eventually they end up escaping the ship with Cassia. And so they explain everything that's going down with her. Like, they explain like, hey, here's the situation that we're in, and we got to stop Marshall. And then she explains how she got captured. And I'm glad they did this because there hasn't been any Inferno Girl Red series since the first one, since Volume 1, which happened like a couple years ago. And I mean, unless I'm just completely brain farting and just missing them, but I've tried to track down like any Massiverse stuff that I possibly can, which is kind of funny because no one is part of the Massiverse, but he's not in this whatsoever. No mention of No One or that universe at all. So I kind of feel like maybe they're just tackling No One into the Massiverse just to try to boost up sales for that. I don't know, but yeah, that's just my personal opinion. Anyways, yeah, she explains what's going on. She explains how the last time she was in this world, aka the last Supermassive that happened, she was on her way back to her world when she saw that there were like two separate universes. Like the universes seemed split or duplicated. She couldn't make sure. And so she went to go check out what was going on, and she ended up getting ambushed by Catalyst and captured. So that's basically how she got kidnapped. And then we just have the group splitting off. We're not splitting off, but they're splitting into two separate vehicles because they can't all fit into one as they're driving to their next destination. And then we get a little bits of them like just chatting and stuff. Like Saitomi, for example, is just very aggressive, and Dylan calls her out on her bitchiness. And she basically explains that she has people in her world that she cares about. Oh, I wish they would tell us who, because she doesn't have anyone in her world. I guess her friends, out of Radiance, maybe. I mean, I guess it could be her family. Like she does have like parents and stuff like that. So yeah, it could be just her family that she's talking about. Though we haven't really seen her interact with them all that much outside of her little mini series. Well, to be honest, we haven't seen any of the other characters all that much. That's like been a big problem I've had with Radiant Black, is that we're so focused on Marshall and Nathan with the occasional Wendell every now and then that we never even get to fixate on the other characters in the group. And she feels like the longer she is in this world, the longer she is away from her world, and she just wants to finish this mission really, really quickly so she can get back. But Dylan eventually says like, hey, like I went through something. And this is like his whole like being taken over by Caleb situation that happened in his series. You're always going to care about people who matter to you, but if you only save the ones we thought deserved it, then you're no longer playing superhero, you're playing God, and that's a slippery slope. And then she decides to apologize to Cassia, which I don't know why when Dylan is one you should be apologizing to, because he's the one that you've been treating like garbage. But yeah, like this situation, like this moment right here, kind of wish we had more of that. Like in the last Supermassive, we had more of the group actually hanging out together, and we get to see more of their interactions. Here, we don't really have like any downtime. This is the only downtime that we have. Everything else is them fighting and doing superhero things. So if you want a lot of action, this is the series for you. If you want a lot of these characters interacting with each other and building their repertoire and their relationship with each other, you're not going to get much of that here. But eventually, yeah, Marshall shows up, and we have an all-out fight between the two, where we have the Supermassive group fighting against Marshall. And they try to talk Marshall down, but Marshall's like, hey, I made a mistake. I need to fix it. The only way I can fix it is I need Cassia to open up I either need to take her power, take her crystal, or I need her take me to the next universe. So to take me to the universe where Nathan is the Radiant. And I will be able to use my powers to stop the catalyst and stop the world from going down the path that happened to this world, causing it to basically be destroyed. But the group is like, no, we can't do that because we can't allow you to go into the other world. You're going power hungry. We don't know what you're going to do. Like, you've already destroyed this world. We can't have you destroy the other world. So we have another fight scene, during which Shift gets killed. And I was really excited for that, because I can't stand this guy. But yeah, Marshall seeing Shift gets killed seems to kind of awaken him a little bit, where he's like, I didn't want to do that. I thought we'd be heroes. And then he disappears. And that's when they're like, all right, well, I guess the day is saved. I don't know why we had to fight Marshall when we got Cassia. All we had to do was just leave. But I guess Marshall like stopped them on their way to try to get out. So maybe that's why they had to have the battle with him. But Marshall's gone. We can now leave. And Cassie's like, yeah, this doesn't seem right. Like, this world's going to be destroyed. So everyone that's on this world is going to cease to exist. But they try to like tell her like, yeah, but there's another version of them in our world. So it's not like they died. It's just one version of them is gone, but they still live on in this other version. And Cassie's like, yeah, no, that doesn't sound right. Like, we should try to save as many people as we can. And so they start gathering people. Meanwhile, Saitomi is like, oh, well, there's one thing I got to do. So she goes and she breaks out this world's version of Shift so that she can bring him back to her world and he will be alive. And I'm just like, damn it, why? Why did you have to bring Shift back? Why can't we just let him stay dead? So yeah, they save a handful of people. It's kind of funny because like this entire world is gonna cease to exist. So billions of people are just gonna be gone. But they only save like a small handful of people from Chicago. So I was like, oh, okay. Why did we even bother doing that? But whatever, they're superheroes. They gotta save as many people as they can. And like, all right, everyone, we got everyone that we could. It's time to go. And so I'm gonna be spoiling this whole issue. So if you don't want spoilers, stop. But I've already kind of gone through much of this. They enter into their timeline, so they're back to their world, and the post office dude has shown up, and he's like, "Hey, thanks for bringing in these multiversal immigrants. We're gonna help them find safety." And I'm just thinking, I hope this has a chain reaction for the rest of the series, because you cannot just don't pull a Marvel, where Marvel we had like the whole 5-year blink where people just disappeared for 5 years and then we brought them all back 5 years later, and didn't really deal too. I mean, they did a little bit of the aftermath, but they didn't go into as deep as they could have. But you're bringing in alternate versions of people into this world. Yeah, it's only like a small group, but still, that's gonna leave a huge impact. Like that's imagine like another version of you arrives into this planet. Like that's gonna affect things. One of you is gonna have to change your name, change your identity, because otherwise, that other version of you can just take everything from you. They can take like your bank account. They can take your identity. There's got to be some kind of negative impact about bringing in people from another world into a world that they already exist. Not to mention just how would it affect if these two were to meet each other? Because there's, stories where like if you get a person from one timeline meeting themselves in an alternate timeline, or one person in one dimension meeting themselves in an alternate dimension, it causes like the world to basically implode, because you can't have two identical people meeting each other. Like, so is there something like with that here? Can the alternate universal version of somebody meet this universe's version? Do we have to keep them separate? There's just a whole can of worms here that I hope gets addressed. We can't just ignore this. So hopefully they bring it up at some point. And then, yeah, they decide, well, we teamed up to take out the alternate version's catalyst. So we're going to team up together now. We're going to try to take out this catalyst. And so, yeah, the next Radiant Black is going to be interesting. I wonder if we're done with the split timelines now. Either that, or we're going to have like maybe one more issue of the split timelines. And then are we having Nathan being the Radiant Black going forward, since the timeline where Marshall's Radiant Black, his world is getting destroyed, is getting erased? So Marshall's Radiant Black is going to get erased as well, right? Unless you're going to bring him here into this timeline in some way, which is just going to, again, open up a whole other can of worms. It was interesting to see the team up. We had some decent fight scenes, though there were times where things got kind of confusing just because of the art style as well as the coloring. And there are things here where it's got to have a huge impact on the other series involved in this. So, I mean, Dead Lucky is already done, so we don't got to worry about Dead Lucky. Inferno Girl Red, she's has her own issues to deal with. Like, whenever we get the next volume of that, she is, like, her world, it's still like a city trapped inside like a dome in space somewhere. So we don't really have to worry about that. But Broke Sun and the Radiance, like, there's got to be like an impact of this mission. Like, how is that going to affect their world? Like, how is it going to affect their series? How is the fact that we're bringing in people from an alternate universe into this universe going to affect things? What's going to happen with Marshall? So yeah, we still have a lot of questions that aren't answered. In fact, we had more questions now than before. But yeah, things are interesting. So all in all, I thought this was okay. I wish it was just more interactions with these characters, because I feel like that's a problem that we have, where we have these characters, they don't really seem to interact with each other all that much. Like the Radiants, for example. In Radiant Black, other than like the brief team-ups, we don't ever really see Radiant Red, Radiant Pink, well, I guess Radiant Yellow is doing his own thing, but we don't see like Radiant Red and Radiant Pink chilling out with Radiant Black at all. And you would think that you would. I would like to see more of that. Like the best things about like the Super Sentai series is the camaraderie between the group. So if you're just gonna have everyone each acting independently, you might as well just go down the common writer route. Here it's just I don't know. Like I kind of wish we had them interacting and working more as a group rather than just oh they show up when the plot calls for it and then they just disappear until we need them again because of plot. Like I would like to see them actually building some kind of friendship, especially since like we have moments where they're trying to talk down Marshall, and like we have Cassia who has only interacted with Marshall once in the last Supermassive. Other than that, they've never had any interactions. So it feels weird that they're like so gun ho to save this Marshall when they don't really know him all that much. Even Saitomi doesn't really know Marshall too much. Like she's the person who would have the most interactions with Marshall, and even then, it's not like they ever hang out with each other outside of superhero stuff. And even then, they do superhero stuff pretty separately. I don't know. I kind of wish we would see more of them working together. Just more of like how are they like? More of their friendship. It's just one of those things where it's like you're trying to pull on like emotional strings, but the strings aren't there. Like you're trying to make us care for this relationship, this friendship, but I don't really feel like you've earned that because you haven't really shown their friendship all that much. You've had very little interactions between these two characters, or I should say between this group of characters, because yeah, it's like they're trying to pull the friendship card on Marshall, but Cassie is the wrong girl to try to pull that card because she's hardly ever interacted with him outside of one event. Saitomi hardly ever interacts with him. It's just one of those things where I kind of wish that we would just see more of their interactions with each other, and we don't get much of that. So, yeah, all in all, what would I give this? I'd give this like maybe a 6 out of 10. I would say this was good. It's not great or anything. It's just good. It does some interesting things. I like the whole team up aspect, but I feel like that could be a lot better. Like the best thing about a team up is seeing the characters interact with each other. And I feel like we didn't really get to see too much of that. It was them fighting alongside each other, but they didn't interact with each other all that much, which I felt was a great loss. So there you go. There's Supermassive 2024. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Later. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I still want to thank you for watching it this far, and I hope the next one is more to your liking. With that said, thank you once again, and I hope you guys and gals have a good one. Later.